Okay, so I'm going to give a sort of final jam update on this because I think I've gotten as far as I can really. I have work tomorrow. There's only a couple of hours left. I don't think I can get enough interesting gameplay done in a couple of hours, so I'm going to call it here. But I thought I would give a sort of semi-post-mortem state of the game after a couple of days and an evening, and kind of go through what I wanted to get to and how far I got with that. So my idea for the theme, which is a small world, was to generate a small world procedurally, which I did. That's cool. And then you have this world with two civilizations, red and blue here, blue and red, and they are, it's a lot like Populous, I guess, in that growth happens automatically. So there are constantly citizens being born. All these houses are occupied. That's boring. Because everyone's nearly dead. Right, okay, let's start a new game. So yeah, you've constantly got people being born. I've got the tick speed up quite high at the moment just to make things happen. And houses are being built to accommodate the new people. And that is happening automatically. That's your population are just doing stuff. They're making babies, and they're building houses, and they're dying. And that's just all the natural order. If they're out of food, they die very quickly. Fine. And so that's kind of the populous element of it. And there's a civ element, I guess, in that there are a lot of global statistics happening, like lumber is a resource that you need for buildings, and food is used to maintain growth, like surplus food provides growth, and food is kind of upkeep. It's a bit RTS-y as well. And so those kind of elements were an idea. Obviously, that's all very simulation. A lot of that's happening automatically. So my idea was that you would be able to turn buildings into different kinds of buildings, and it would have an effect. So these buildings that we have here on the grain, we can turn them into farmers because they've got appropriate farming areas nearby, and that will generate food. And so theoretically, if you can generate food, obviously I didn't play that one very well. Okay, none of those can farm. If you can generate food, then you can live longer and keep your population growth instead of everybody dying. And if you can do that better than the other guy, you win. You do that better than the AI, you win. That was the game plan. As it happens, I didn't get all the way to doing that, but there we go. That's the principle. So what I did, I have my procedurally generated map. That went pretty well. That was one of the first things I did, really, was focus on that. It's done using, let me see if I can remember what it's even called. What are we for? You know what, I have this in a comment, so let's have a look. Let's see if I can do some snazzy streaming stuff. If we have a look at our map, somewhere down here we've got the information on, there we go, Voronoi is a thing. Basically what you do is you distribute a bunch of points around your map, in this case, and they have coordinates, they're nodes with coordinates, and you mark them and you say this is a source of, it's a center of this type, essentially, in this case. And then you iterate through your tiles and you say, hey, what source am I nearest to? I become that type. And so the result is that we don't have that in the foreground anymore. The result is that somewhere around here there were centers. There was a center of woodland, and there's a center of grass, and a center of grain somewhere nearby. And so the tiles around here have gone, well, I'm nearest this grain center, so I'll become grain, and I'll become woodland, and I'll become grass. And I think that worked out kind of well. It's a bit weird, like mathematically it gives kind of not quite ordinary shapes that you would see in a game world, but I think it works adequately. Certainly for my purposes, I thought it was quicker than finding other ways to clump together these terrain types. So I'm pretty pleased with it. The river is actually done first. The river plots itself and tries to look a bit like a river. Then it adds its riverside tiles alongside it immediately, and then the Voronoi distribution thing is done for the entire rest of the map. So that was a really cool experience, learning how to do that and implementing it. It was one of the kind of fulfilling fast progress bits early in the weekend, but that doesn't provide any gameplay, which was really my problem with this weekend. I didn't get to enough gameplay quick enough. So one of the next things I did was spend some time working on art, because I had all these in flat colours and they were horrendous. So I just played with some colours and patterns in Paint.net, and that worked out kind of well. Like it has this kind of woolly world, kind of very Nintendo, everything's made of cloth kind of thing going on, but I think that works out okay. So next thing I did was get these buildings building, and for the building sprites I really couldn't, I'm terrible at producing art, so I really just went for these basic types, and you can identify them by the letter on top. Like that is a house, that's a builder, that's a farm. Lumberjack is entirely broken in this build, but there's the L. It just doesn't do anything. Like lumber isn't really used. It is, when we convert these to different types of houses, lumber is spent, but it's never gained. Oh well, never mind. The next thing I spent a long time on was this camera, which this should have been easy. It's common stuff, but I just haven't done it in a long time. So we have edge scrolling with the mouse. We have quite nice zooming in and out to a limit. It was originally centered, like wherever you had your mouse, the zoom would center. So getting a decent distribution that moves in the direction of the mouse was, that took me a while to do nicely. But I think it works pretty well. After my camera troubles, I decided to play with the UI for a long time. So I got this status bar going and this information tooltip that tells you information about what you're hovered over, whether that's a tile or a bit of the UI. That's really cool. You can select items in the UI and you get your selected information, which includes, if it's a building, includes building options. If it's a tile, it just gives you same information as hovering. But it stays selected. So that's cool. I'm really quite pleased with the UI. It's come together nicely. We've got some menu stuff going on, menu states. I basically did these tonight when I got bored of the gameplay stuff and realised I didn't have enough time. I thought I'd just spruce up the screens. That kind of works. So yeah, you can see that some of the gameplay I did get in, like these houses are automatically building. They actually build when there are full houses. I say full. There's 2 levels of full. There's 4 out of 4 is considered full. But actually a house can go up to 8. It's just considered overcrowded. If a house is at least 4, if it's full, then that will say, hey, we should build more houses. People also migrate between houses, so the available housing, I'm running out of pop, so let's do this. The available housing is obviously all the unused slots in houses up to the 4, and then so people do migrate, they move across to emptier houses than the ones they're in. That's the thing, but constantly you've got births happening, you've got growth. You also have deaths, but they're a lot slower. Unless you're out of food, then the death rate increases dramatically because everybody's hungry. If houses are all full, if they're all 8 out of 8, which they're not now because people are dying, deaths are also increased because it's considered unhealthy. So I had lots of these mechanics ideas, and quite a lot of them are in place. It's just the time to balance something like that is a big deal. And yeah, I just didn't get enough done. Like lumber is not even a thing. Farming is. So the other idea I had, obviously you can get quite screwed by RNG, by the random number generators in this. So you can get a map where you start next to grain and you can become a farmer immediately, and that's amazing. Or you can get a map where you're in the middle of a field. That's a crash. That's exciting. I shall restart that. We can try and look at something else while that starts going, possibly. Do we have, no we don't, sorry. I'm not really used to OBS, so I'm just waiting for it to catch up with itself. I can't remember what I was saying now. That's upsetting. can we get this in view? Yeah, let's do that for a bit. Yeah, I completely lost my train of thought. Anyway, yeah, lumber didn't really happen. Oh, right, RNG, yeah. In fact, this is quite a good example. So we had one where there was a farmer. You could get a farmer immediately. And then you've got this situation where we're in the middle of a field. We're miles from everything. Like, there's nothing you can do immediately. It's highly likely that your civ is going to die first. So I added this mechanic where you could, like, because the building's happening automatically, you can't control where stuff is built. But you can influence the direction it will build in. So at the moment, we're just building, is picking any edge house, any house that has available spaces near it to build in. And it picks a house that can build and says, right, build another house. However, let's say we want to go in this direction because we want some of this, even though we've got woodland here and we've got grain here, we want to go this way. We can stick a flag down and it'll start building in that direction. It'll prioritize, I mean, more than prioritize, it will take the nearest house to the flag and you build from there. So it's still a bit random because, sure, it picks this nearest house, but it builds up. That's possible, but it will generally head in this direction. I think we're running out of pop on that. But yeah, I think that's really cool. So we can force it to build over here. If we build a builder, everything will go faster. And then actually, change my mind, I want to go over here. And so that works. The general build near the flags mechanic works. And let's have another builder. If you stick a flag on a house, obviously, it will build around it, essentially. If there's no house available, if the nearest house to the flag isn't available, it just picks, it adds further out, and that's fine. That works pretty well. So yeah, I did get that working mechanically. Farms work entirely. It's just quite hard to tell because I haven't tweaked the numbers. But if we make these farms, this is great. If we make all of these farms, also the tick rate is not helping me because I'm slower than the game by a long way at the moment. Oh, we ran out of lumber as well. Not enough lumber, mine more lumber. But you can see, look, food is ticking up, way up now because I've got this massive farm stack. So farms work, they're just not balanced. Lumber doesn't work at all. Building works because everything's, well, if I could build, everything would speed up. And that's a really visible change. That really pleases me. It's like, hey, all this like mechanics wiring that I did before you could even turn buildings into builders, once I implemented the change buildings bit, suddenly everything went whoosh. We're building really fast now. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's actually the effect of something I did. So yeah, it's been kind of rewarding that a lot of stuff I wrote worked. I think I was overambitious with what I decided to do and the time I had available. If I'd had all day today instead of being at work, that would have been amazing. And I think I would have had something to submit. But sadly, that's not the case. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed a bit of a rundown of my thoughts and what I did for this jam. Yeah, I might play with it over the next few days and see where it goes. Because I'm pretty interested in it. I think I could finish off the mechanics, round off like lumber, and I also had an idea for special buildings that would give other bonuses that you could place. So you'd say you could build, so you've got farmers, but you could build an actual farm that would take up more space maybe, and it has to be built on grain, but that improves the efficiency of your farmers. And you could have like lumber mills, or you could have fishing something centers. I don't know. But yeah, I did have an idea that you could have these other bonus buildings that cost more in lumber, and again make the player's role more active. I do realize it's very simulation with a little bit of interaction, and so it would have been nice to get these other things in that allow the player to do more. But yeah, time. Anyway, thanks very much.